afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Richard Marco, the Long Hill Report. We have with us, as usual, Gus Steeves.
Good morning.
And
Afternoon.
the world has not ended. A few days ago, we had the election that was going to break the nation. And so far, it hasn't.
We're still here. Yeah.
You all know that Mr. Trump has won. There were all kinds of predictions of almost everything up until Civil War, and would Jamie Raskin approve the transition? But Kamala came out. I didn't see it, but I've heard she was fairly gracious, and contacted President-elect Trump, and we're going to go forward.
Mm-hmm.
But that history never ends. Mm-hmm. So some things can be noted, and we're going to note them right now. When Donald Trump was doing his shtick before the election of cleaning house,
Mm-hmm.
it's a shtick he did before the 2016 election,
Yep.
wherein he didn't clean house.
Nope.
Now, will he clean house this time?
Probably not.
Well, supposedly, he said he's not going to do all the wars. He's going to stop them. We won't have troops overseas in foreign wars. And he didn't really start the wars, but he did some not so good things when he was president, like leaving troops in Syria and assassinating somebody who was arguably under diplomatic immunity,
Mm-hmm.
little things like that. But he, certainly the Biden administration has been much more ridiculous. With all the neocons migrating towards, if not becoming out-and-out Democrats, migrating away from the Republican Party, people like the Cheneys,
Mm-hmm.
who are in a sense war criminals.
In a sense, no, I think they are.
To say the least. But so there's hope that Trump might have a different outlook, do something different. Well, that's come into question because he has made, as the head of his State Department transition team, Brian Hook. Who was Brian Hook? He was an aide to one of the slimier people in the Trump administration. I shouldn't say that. One of the less honorable people, less decent people, Mike Pompeo. They were besties. And so this brings into question, is Trump, what does cleaning house under Trump, cleaning the swamp, draining the swamp, mean under Trump? That's Article 1. Second of all, I have been in Massachusetts forever. National Public Radio, the whole thing. Everybody said Trump had no right to say that there was any question about this beautiful election we held in 2020. Well, I saw in a few places something that brings that in a little into question. In the last several elections, the Democratic candidate got a certain amount of votes that was somewhat steady. John Kerry got 59 million votes. Obama, 69.5, first time out. Obama, 65.9, second time out. Mrs. Clinton, 65.9. Harris, this last election, 66.4. When Biden ran, 81.3 million votes. Now, that is not proof that something was done wrong, but it is evidence that somebody can question it. And Trump and whoever his friends and buddy who questioned that, at least you could say they weren't crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They may be crazy for other reasons, but then again, aren't we all?
Yeah.
But National Public Radio, everybody, oh, it was not, that was not true. No, no, not the least hint of it. Now, National Public Radio, I, as a taxpayer, I want some money out of National Public Radio because they ran a non-stop commercial for the Democratic Party for this whole election, from way before, for Biden and everything.
Well, not just the Democratic Party, for the war state in general.
Okay, but for the whole thing, the point, I'm making a point. They ran a non-stop commercial. I know that now the National Public Radio gets money from the American taxpayer. They should be charging the Democratic Party a big bundle of money for the commercial and give it out to the American citizenry.
I have no problem with that. You look at how much money that Kamala had brought in was like $980 million.
Oh, she's
they should be paying us that money.
she should.
Of course, Trump brought in like $400 million.
But she ran out of money. She's run out of money.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, yeah, that came out that they owe her campaign owes $30 million.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe.
Given
how much money they raised,
you may. I don't make the news. I just report it.
I think that if that's the case, then they
your
are
name should have
taking
been
money and putting it in places where it shouldn't be, because they had every intention of doing that. But I think that the Republican campaigns do that too.
We're going to change your name to Thomas, if you doubt this.
So be it. I doubt it.
Okay, well, I've had my fun. I'll let you go on in something then.
Okay.
And you never bring a clipboard.
You're right.
Come on, let's be professional here. All right, you come up with something.
Well, I mean, I was figuring one of the things that I think is interesting with this whole election is that we have had so much screaming and yelling and demonization, and like Trump was being stated as like the next incarnation of Satan or Hitler or Pol Pot or whomever. And I think one of the reasons why that failed is the average American, whether you liked Trump or not, knew that simply wasn't true. We've had a 4-year presidency with him. We're still here.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a bombastic corporatist corruptocrat. But then again, all of the Democrats and Republicans we've had in the White House since about 1980 have been those, except the bombastic part. That's the only difference between him and the others.
So he's a little louder.
He's a little louder, a little more obnoxious, but other than that, he's still pretty much the same show. Which kind of goes into what you were just saying about the neocons. The neocons migrated over to the Democrats for this administration. They'll migrate back to the Republicans for his administration. That's kind of what they do. It's not about policy or caring what happens to this country. It's all about maintaining power. For them anyway, and I think a lot of them specifically do it from behind the scenes because they don't want to be right in front of the voters or the camera if they can avoid it.
Well,
I mean, some of them don't mind doing it like Pompeo did, but...
Well, I mean, there's got to be, they don't call, if you're going to have something called a deep state, you got to have a lot of people behind the curtain. You can't.
That's true.
So there's Pompeo, he was a criminal. He was a war criminal.
Most of them are, unfortunately. A lot of them behind the scenes are.
Obama's a war criminal.
Yeah, I agree.
Hillary's definitely a war criminal.
So is Bush. So is both Bushes. The older one somewhat less so, but.
But Trump, for the, I could indict him for a number of things.
Yeah.
But he would be to the back of the bus compared to most of them. I think partially, not because I wouldn't ever say he had any bit of a saintly soul.
No.
I wouldn't, of course, one shouldn't say any bad about anybody. That's why they have, a last judgment, if they have a last judgment.
Yeah.
And
I don't think they do.
so, but I think one about Trump is, as a deal maker, rather than going to war, like in Ukraine, and he didn't go to war in Ukraine.
No, he didn't.
He built it up, and people screaming, "Well, yeah, but he built it up, or he gave him." Yeah, you because you were screaming at him to do it, but he He wanted to make the deal and not have the war. The thing in Israel, Hamas, the whole thing, can he do that? He says he can. If he does it, if he brings out a peace, he will be the greatest statesman so far in this century, and that's only a short century.
And that's quite plausibly true. I read something a couple of days ago. Somebody else is commenting that similar idea. If he could end the war in Ukraine and end the war in the Middle East,
Anybody can end the war in Ukraine. Any American president.
just walking away.
Any American president could end the war in Ukraine in a half hour.
Probably.
All they have to say is we're not spending any more money on this. We've lost a bundle on this.
Yeah.
This is a waste, and it is a waste.
Well, so is the war in Israel.
Yeah, but the
issue,
neocon backing of the war in Israel is far, far in excess of what's happening in Ukraine.
Agreed. I think in Ukraine, it's almost entirely profit-driven, and it's somewhat ideological as being anti-Russian. But I think in Israel, it's unfortunately also tied up with a bunch of pseudo-religious eschatology going on, both in America and in Israel. And it's getting crazier. And I think we pull the plug on the weaponry, it'll slow things down. But I think the way things are going over there at the moment, I think the Israeli government has made it very clear they have no intentions of stopping blowing up Gaza or Lebanon. I mean, they're kind of they pulled a couple of brigades out of Lebanon in the last couple of days.
Why did they pull them out?
Well, they claim, because they're losing.
Because they were
Put it plain English, they're losing.
suffering,
They're losing.
casualties. Ever since the Six-Day War, and even the Six-Day War, Israel has been casualty averse.
Yeah.
They didn't really have too much choice in the Yom Kippur War. They had to do a lot to win that, but they were willing to deal. They really weren't willing to deal in 1967. They just, we'll take what we want and we've got it.
Yeah.
But in Yom Kippur, they had to give up some stuff.
Well, they had no choice because they were invaded.
Yeah.
So, but lately, they've been doing the invading, and that's part of the reasons why they're
but when they went
casualty averse.
2000 and what was it, 6? They left because
they
they
lost
were
their
suffering
team.
casualties.
Yeah.
So we got to. If somebody can get to a point, if Trump could get to a point where he can say to everybody, "Look, there's only so much we're going to give you," which, believe me, it would be a hard thing for him to do because this is Adelson, Sheldon Adelson's widow, was his big backer. But there's one thing he has going for him. One thing he's going for him, and I'm thinking of, and I wonder if you can guess what it is. January 21st, he's a lame duck.
Well, you mean?
He's not. He can't run ever again.
Well, no, I know that.
And he can.
No question.
It's like in what was the movie with Bill Murray? Every day is the same day.
Oh yeah, Groundhog Day.
We can do whatever we want. January 21st, I can do whatever I want.
True, which means it could be, if he does it right, it could be doing all kinds of really good things, or it could just mean doing some really awful things.
It could be. That's no argument.
Yeah.
But he has room to do anything.
True.
And you could probably say too. Well, first of all, I don't think Netanyahu's long term. I think enough people are going to eventually say, "Hey, Bibi, out," because he's a liability.
He is. I mean, I think even he recognizes it. That's
why he's fighting to stay alive.
Yes, because I've seen that argument. And although I did see something a couple of days ago, I can't remember where it was offhand, arguing that if the Israeli government basically were to collapse and they had to go to elections, they argued that Netanyahu would probably win the elections.
Maybe he would.
Because there seems to be a lot of support in Israel for what's going on, although it's starting to bite,
Well,
both economically and in terms of the casualties.
not enough of the voters. Everybody is a reservist in Israel.
Yeah.
Not enough of them are putting on uniforms and
Right.
low crawling up through Lebanon.
Yeah, I've read that.
Not enough.
And they're having a hard time, especially trying to recruit the Haredim, because I guess they made them eligible to be recruited, but they're only like less than 10% are actually signing up, which doesn't surprise me that much.
It's not an easy thing.
No.
To get them because they are reticent because for religious reasons, and I'm the last person
to really understand that. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I don't quite get that either, but.
I mean, where in the Old Testament, Joshua at the Battle of Jericho, there were no reservists then.
Yeah.
Everybody was in the group. Nobody got that deal to, just to study.
On the flip side, you can kind of understand why the secular people who have to go into the reserves and actually have to take up guns and fight might be a little annoyed at the fact that a bunch of people are purposely being excluded from doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're praying for your being or studying or whatever. No, how about you join the fight?
Well,
if you want it, you do it.
I've seen a lot of pictures with troopers, mostly in Gaza, with the long braids and stuff like that. They're in the battle.
Oh, I'm sure there's some.
And they're religious, but they're not. They've got so many sects there.
True.
That we'll never understand them.
Of course, on the flip side, in our country, it's kind of exactly the opposite. The ones who really want the wars in our upper class don't bother to actually join the wars.
Oh,
they send all of us schlubs out to do it.
What was his name, Cheney? Why didn't you go? I had other priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be staying alive, which is probably the same priority as the people who are forced to go. That's their priority too.
Oh well, that's why I'm for the the United States. When we finally adopt neutrality in my whole program,
totally.
Everybody goes. Everybody goes. Because, if Brad has to get down in the foxhole with Billy Bob and Miguel and Deshaun and Low Crawl, then he might be, and it's got to be a system that they don't get to retreat into ROTC. No, your first 2 years, your basic is with everybody. Your first few years of AIT with everybody, and then you're in the unit with everybody. After that, if you want to do something really, really special, you better be really, really excellent.
That would be a lot fairer than the system we currently have, that's for sure. Especially considering I was seeing something a couple days ago about how they were saying this stuff about the wars, and at the same time there was an article talking about how they're having mold problems in military barracks because our system does not take care of the people, whether it be military people or civilians.
Money to help the people in Asheville and the people in.
They're not helping those people. They're sending it to Israel and the Ukraine.
Milton,
and the corrupt scumbags, and they're running the
show.
show.
They're sending it. Oh, they're not doing it with Milton. Oh. How about Maui?
Maui? No.
Didn't we help them?
Not a whole lot.
How about East Palestine?
Not a whole lot. Or wait, yeah, about the fires in California. Not a whole lot.
No, this is.
They all get left to the will of capitalism, whereas the upper class gets all of their money.
That's not.
And the taxpayers foot the bill for us to invade other countries.
That's not capitalism. That's corporativism.
Same thing.
It is not.
The people are running the show.
The people who are running the show are not capitalists.
They're pretty close to it.
Then they're robber barons. They're real robbers.
They're robber barons. I agree with that.
But they're not.
I agree with that.
They're not capitalists.
They are robber barons. There's no question about that.
If they were capitalists, they wouldn't be sucking off the state like Raytheon is and those people.
That's a matter of opinion.
It is a
I'm not
matter
gonna
of
argue that.
opinion, and I'm more than willing to let you slide on that one.
When they say they're capitalists, they're capitalists.
They say that.
They say they're
well,
capitalists, and that's what capitalism does.
Come on. Okay, I agree though that we really need to have a Soviet system here.
I didn't say that.
Because they did it right.
I didn't say that.
Well, what's the system you really want?
I want a democracy that actually works as a democracy.
Democracy, an election, and this one was evidence of that too, as well.
This election was a mess.
An election is an auction of stolen goods in advance.
Yeah, basically. The
So
way we certainly do them now, that is
democracy
true.
is
The way we do them now, that is true.
Oh,
I agree
come
with that.
on.
I agree with that.
Well, how would you
Our
do
system-
it?
our
How would
system-
you do it so it wouldn't be that?
Our
way?
system is.
How would you do it?
The problem is
I
our
don't say it
system
is what
is
it
not
is.
democratic.
Tell me how you would make it so it really was democratic.
Honestly, I think a lot of it is the fact that our system is going to be too big.
Well, then you're saying you can't do it.
We just need to be smaller. Bring it down to the local level.
How do you do that?
Maybe we get rid of Washington.
I love that. I've been.
Let's start with
before
that.
you
Get
were
rid of that.
born, I was for that. Probably.
Because it's obvious that the corruption just rises to the top.
Yeah. Well, it's
just like the
if you have something
the
to
froth
steal,
of
if you have something to steal, somebody will steal it.
and that's indeed what happens. Yes,
And
that has been happening in this country for a long time.
well, there's things you can do to, like we had this recently in this election on the MCAS.
Yep.
MCAS is not system. It's not perfect. Mm-hmm. But if you have
The
a
ballot
school,
question passed, by the way.
if you have a school system where everybody passes, but then they can't pass the MCAS, you need an MCAS.
That is true.
And all
If
the
your
stuff,
system is
all
like
the
that,
stuff
then
I
yes.
got, all the stuff I got in the mail, saying yes on 2. Guess who it was funded by? The union.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like my wife said, I said, if we let this go, if we don't let this go, somebody might come up with a reform. But if we let this go, we're never going to hear about this again. And the schools will just sink.
I don't think that's necessarily true because
No, you don't. You always say that's not
Let me finish.
You always use the term necessarily.
Well, look at it.
I have to stop. Tell me why it is not true. Don't say necessarily true. Tell me why it's not true.
Well, we've seen in the past that we had an educational system that worked.
When?
Certainly before the MCAS started.
No, it didn't because no. Oh no, there were problems. That's why they had the MCAS.
We haven't had a system that was completely problem free. I don't expect
But you say
perfection.
it was good. Now you're saying
it
it
was
was good.
working.
We didn't have to have some kind of reform. Oh, it was working before.
It did. Things
You
do
went
need
to
to
school,
get fixed
you got your
occasionally.
grades,
Yes. Nothing's perfect. I don't expect perfection.
I
expect it to
something
work.
to be rather. Does it work? Why do you? You were in the school system.
Yes.
When?
Back when we had
You were a teacher.
SATs was the max.
No, you were a teacher.
No.
When you were in the schools. Okay, we still have the SATs,
We do now. But now there are so many levels of standardized tests that it's ridiculous. Back when I graduated high school, we just had the SATs and that was it.
When did you graduate from high school?
1989.
1989.
Yeah.
So when did the MCAS come in?
Well, the education reform I think was 93, so the MCAS would have been shortly thereafter. I don't remember exactly when it started.
Wasn't it? Okay. So the MCAS, and you're saying the school system was hunky-dory when you went through.
It worked.
When you say worked, what does it mean?
It doesn't. I mean, I don't.
What is the definition?
I don't expect it to be. As I said, I don't expect it to be perfect. Nothing
Well,
else.
what is it that when you say worked, like I understand no internal combustion engine in a car is perfect, but what's working? It doesn't stall out every 5 seconds, or you can get going.
I got an education. I went through college.
What is the definition?
I
of
know.
an
I know how
what
to
is the
read.
definition-
I read all the
What
stuff all
is
the
the
time.
definition of an education?
I mean, I educate myself all
What
the
is the
time. I'm
what is the
constantly reading
definition of an
stuff.
education?
The teachers that taught me got me in
What
a
is-
position where I knew what I was doing.
What is the definition of an education?
Let's not play this game.
No, I'm not playing this game because
you
it's
are.
a very serious thing. It's a very serious question.
I'm answering the question that you stop changing the question.
I,
You asked me how things looked when I was before MCAS.
and then you went off
Things
about,
are
I
not
got an
perfect.
education. You had probably good training, and you wouldn't be here if you weren't somebody with an intellectual curiosity.
That's true.
But that's not an education. An education is a definitely narrow thing.
That's your definition.
No,
of
that's
education.
the definition. That's the definition of the great, the great people of the world, like say like Cardinal Newman, which I was forced to read his book on education.
So
And education is the training of the mind. It's not.
people learning how to think and ration,
learning how to
understand
think
things,
about important
how to
things.
read,
How many people
things.
ever came out of school with that?
I can't give you a number.
No, you can't. But how would you say the schools accomplished the mission? You basically feel that they or believe that if the schools were accomplishing the mission.
I think they did relatively well. Yes. I mean, I think I did relatively well in school. I graduated seventh in my class.
I'll tell you, I don't think I did because I was the biggest lazy. If it wasn't a book of history, I would pull some kind of stunt to not do it. I did the minimum in math, minimum in everything. Would I call myself educated? No, I'd probably say semi-educated. But from like I know, I think some very important things like Cicero's dictum that a person who does not know of events before his own time remains ever a child.
Yeah. I think that basic argument is basically true. Yes.
I'm probably the only person in my town who knows that. I'm probably within 100 miles of where we are now, probably about 50 other people maybe who know that.
Okay.
But
that in itself doesn't mean anything. So you can cite one person.
It means a lot for citizenship. It means a lot for thinking about where we're going.
The issue of citizenship is getting people to participate in governing
But
themselves.
They have to have.
That's the key part of citizenship.
They have to have some background to be able to participate.
Everybody brings a somewhat different background to whatever they're doing. That's the whole strength of being a citizen, is being able to draw from this person's background here and that person's background over there and this person's background over there.
To do what?
Your background and my background and her background and theirs. To bring it all together so we can figure out how to govern things and how to run the community that we live in a way that works for everybody as best as possible.
I would say,
I don't expect perfection, but make it work is what we need to do.
I would say, like in a small town, and I had some discussions with Dick Vaughn about this. But with a small town government, it's fairly good. But we fail miserably in state government. We fail miserably nationally.
That's probably because they're too big.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. But that doesn't. We went back to our argument about the schools. I think we desperately need something to measure them by. And the MCAS, not perfect, but it was the best thing we were going to get.
I don't know about that, because I think the issue is it's not so much an issue of measuring them, it's an issue of having our entire educational system, because of the MCAS, being geared to teaching to the test. That was the issue underlying the MCAS. It wasn't supposed to start that way, because it kind of ended up becoming that way.
And that's the thing.
That's the problem.
That may be a problem. It may even be the problem. But we need the yardstick. And the yardstick is going to be a test. And we shouldn't have, it should be one day, it should be such that we have enough confidence in the school system that we can say at one point, like they do the NAEP, put all your books aside, here's your test page, take the test, and then we measure it.
Yeah.
And instead of having all this preparation.
I agree with that.
But we need that yardstick.
I didn't say we didn't need a yardstick to be able to see how people know, whether they've learned it or not. I understand that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I think the problem that we had, as I said a few minutes ago, is the fact that the entire system was geared to it.
And that's a problem.
That's the problem.
But now, in that argument, I would love to have had the system to have had. But what it is we threw the baby out with the bathwater. The unions didn't want it. And now they are never going to have to answer the question.
The test is still there. It's just not a graduation requirement.
It should be, at least but it should be reformed. It should not have been thrown out as a requirement. It should have been reformed, and they will never reform it. And if
that may be true. We'll see. That may be true.
How much money do you want to put on it? In a 10-year, a 5-year.
I mean, it is possible that they may come up with something else that works better.
They will never do it.
We'll see.
They
may not. You might be right. We'll see.
I'm willing to bet.
We'll see. I mean, I would love to see a situation where we can have, because we used to have school systems that taught people, all of those kinds of things that you just argued. And I think when we started going toward the more standardized testing stuff, we started losing that. It hadn't completely gone by the wayside, when we were doing the SATs as the graduation standard. But even then, I don't remember if the SAT was required to graduate.
Not my high school.
I don't think it was for mine either.
I don't know.
They were often. They may have been required for some colleges. They were often, at least strongly considered for colleges.
It was,
but it wasn't a requirement.
Graduation
standard, as far as I know.
If you were on the college track where I went to high school, you took it.
Yeah, I did too.
And speaking about a track, we're getting off the track here because it's getting late. So, ladies and gentlemen, Gus Steeves, Richard Morco, thank you for coming to the Long Hill Report, and we will see you next month.